Hi, everybody. We'll just go for it, and we'll just get to know each other, and it'll be a fantastic thing. So I'm just going to begin by let's just do some introductions. Everybody knows me here, and since we are so small, why don't we just go around and everybody say who you are? So, Lauren, why don't you go next?
Hello, my name is right now. Okay, I'm Lauren. I use she her. I'm a fourth year here at Oberlin. A dance and theater major. I don't know what else to say. I'm here. I also run publicity. I don't know all the things.
Great, you do all the things. Yeah. And Julian, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Julian Abramoff. I'm the box office manager for Central Ticket Service, and I'm also helping out with publicity.
Great. Eric?
Hello, my name is Eric Stegel. I'm the managing director for theater, dance, and opera.
Awesome. And Taylor, you're here. Where are you? I don't see you because
I'm here.
Hey. Hey.
Hi. I'm Taylor Bebot. I graduated from Oberlin in 2007 and live in LA now. And Matthew and I worked on a little Get Out the Vote video series like the week before the election. So and I do film and some theater and a lot of puppetry out here.
Awesome. And then let's see. Hey, Gillian, are you there? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, sure. Sorry I got here a little late. There were two different link options. Yeah, but I'm here. I'm Gillian. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a second year comparative American studies major, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Great, great. And then I'm going to ask, so our two guests today are Taylor, who just introduced herself. It's also good to know that Taylor is an alumna of Oberlin College, graduated in 2007. And our very special guest today is, and Serena, forgive me if I pronounce your last name wrong, but I'm going to go with Bian. Serena Bian, is that close?
Bian. Very close.
Okay, very close. All right, fantastic. Who is, and I have it written down, she is a regional events manager on the national events team with the DNC. And I'm just going to do a real quick rundown of how all of us know one another. And then we're going to have Serena and Taylor talk with us a little bit. You're also probably going to hear my dog barking because the guy from Orkin just arrived. And so David's letting him into the house, and these are the times we live in now. So anyway, so just really briefly, the point of today is really just to sort of process how things went, where we are, what we're going to be looking at moving forward, and that kind of thing. And to decompress. We scheduled this early on, just in the very unlikely event that the election went the other way. I wanted to make sure that we were here to do, some space holding and some caretaking for all of us, myself included, had it not gone the way that it did. But fortunately, we're not here to do that. So what we do want to talk about is taking the creative impulse and turning it into political action. And who better to talk about that than Serena? And we'll get back to that. So the way that all this happened is as follows. Most of you know that I'm not teaching this semester because of Oberlin's trimester experiment to depopulate the campus to a certain degree. And so it gave me a fantastic opportunity to really work as hard as I could on the campaign to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. the truth of the matter is, I mean, the journey here, I'll be really brief about it, was it was kind of interesting. I mean, it started in 2016 when the last election happened, and as many of us did, I had a very particular reaction to how that turned out. And I was determined that I couldn't let it happen again. And P.S., I don't think that it's a problem given the small number of people that we have here, but I do want to be very, very clear that we're going to be talking about this experience through the lens of my involvement and Serena's involvement and Taylor's involvement, which was very, very partisan. But we welcome everybody here, and we want everybody to feel welcome and as though they have a voice in talking about these things. It's generally not a problem at Oberlin anyway, being the most liberal arts college in the United States, but you never know. I would never want to exclude anyone. So anyway, I had this sort of wake up call in 2016. And then more recently, as the early campaign started happening, it's no secret that I am a fairly progressive person, and that my politics are very progressive. And I had some young progressive people, obviously an Oberlin alum, who started challenging boomers on, on Facebook and saying, well, you know, if Joe Biden is going to be the candidate, I better see every single boomer show up and get him elected because he's not our choice. And so I stepped up. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. And so I started searching sometime in September. I started looking at all of the Vote Joe website and everything, and came across a little thing called an event called Community Leaders. And I read the description of it and I thought that sounds like something I would be really interested in doing. And so the community leaders part of this, and Serena can address this much more clearly than I can, is essentially a sort of grassroots outgrowth of the national campaign, in which people were asked to go to their local communities and in order to encourage people to get actively engaged in the campaign and that kind of thing. Well, my local community, I felt was a little limiting. And so I reached out to my larger community, which is all of the people that I know across the country and the world, in fact, who are performing artists. And because performing artists have been particularly devastated by the pandemic, and because all of our venues are closed, and because we have no way to make our livings, it was really important to me that I create a safe place for people. So I did, and I put out an invitation for people to join my Facebook group, which I created as a result of the community leaders thing. And before I knew it, I had 450 members from all across the United States and Canada and France, and so it was really quite a robust turnout. And so I used that group as my community. And there are things about it that were really great and things about it that weren't didn't go quite the way that I had thought they would, but it was still a great thing. So the group is called, for those of you who might want to join, because you're all welcome to, it's called Pause Up. That's actually an acronym for Performing Arts Workers Showing Up for Progress. And Pause Up, of course, is a little tip of the hat to Lady Gaga. And it was so great that that on the last night of the campaign that Lady Gaga was on stage with Joe. I thought that was great. Well, sort of virtually on stage with Joe. And so anyway, I used Pause Up as a way to reach out to my community. I led a variety of different kinds of events. Though we'll hear Serena describe it in a little bit greater depth, we'll circle back around to the things that I thought went really, really well and the things that maybe didn't go quite so well. So with that, Sermina, I'm just going to ask you to talk a little bit about both the Community Leaders Program and also we would love to hear your story. I mean, I think that's basically how all of this has worked for me throughout this entire movement, is just hearing people's stories. And although we've seen each other on a screen, we really don't know one another at all. And so I would love to hear your story, and I'd love for you to share it with all the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matthew, thank you so much for inviting me to this wonderful, intimate gathering. And it's so cool to hear about your journey through Oberlin, through the Biden for President campaign. And personally, you know, I love that this Facebook group is still continuing onwards, because there's obviously so much work to be done. Like, I feel like we just got to the starting line. Now we're able to actually start. So yeah, I think I'll start briefly just to pick up where Matthew left off on Communities United, and more about the idea behind why we decided to do something like that on a national campaign. And then I'll talk about a little bit about myself and what brought me to it. So Communities United. So I am on our national events team, which is part of our larger national digital organizing team, where with the Biden for President campaign, there really was only field organizing and door-to-door canvassing in key battleground states in the last couple of weeks of the campaign, and everything else was pretty much digital. And so because of that, we were sort of the team to help be on the grounds, but digitally, and find volunteers to be those digital organizers, whether that is through phone banking, text banking, letter writing, friend-to-friend organizing, hosting debate watch parties, just like trying to find as many touch points through people's personal networks, as well as different mediums of communication as possible. And one of the big things that we learned, but I think most campaigns have known for a long time, is that like, you're most effective organizing people that you know, and trying to encourage and invite people that you already have previous relationships with, as opposed to calling random people that you've never asked before, even though that definitely helps win races and pushes margins. And so Communities United was built because we saw, you know, there are so many people who want to get involved, can do the work of organizing, and have different groups of people that they can also organize as well. And we were seeing a bit of volunteer retention, where someone would show up for one phone bank, but because they weren't in person, you're not really able to form those really personal relationships. And so you might not want to come back, or their life gets busy. And so this was also aimed at trying to get community leaders like Matthew to show up week over week and invite one of their communities to get involved in any way. And we tried to encourage people to do, you know, weekly actions, but ultimately the campaign and program was really aimed at just like, there's so many things to be done, and meeting people in communities where they were at to try to do their own form of organizing. So Matthew's group looked one way, as did the remainder. I think there are about 320 or so community leaders, and they looked various different ways, ranged in all different ages, from 10 to I think 70 something. So yeah, so really, really fun. And then I think the ultimate goal of Communities United is to help what is after this election. So now that these communities have been activated, how can people continue to mobilize for Georgia, to mobilize for state and Senate races, and just to get more active at a local as well as national level too. So that is Communities United. And a little bit about me. So this was my first political campaign. Biden was not my first pick, but I think my journey started actually in my freshman year. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, but I'm from Michigan, and just grew up in Michigan, born and raised, total Midwesterner, and had a bit of a culture shell shock when I went to Penn. I came in wanting to study environmental studies and be a climate activist. But freshman year was really lonely for me. I literally fell into just like deep depression because I felt like there was something wrong with me. Like, why couldn't I adjust to this student campus culture? Like, what is it with me that I can't make friends? And it took me going back home to Michigan and like healing myself in the most woo-woo of ways, just like going and working on an urban farm and doing some yoga, like writing, reading, just stepping outside of that campus and culture to realize like, oh my gosh, we're all hurting in some ways. Um, and sometimes it just takes people to actually try to have those conversations, to lean in and be those culture changers or movement builders. And so I arrived back my sophomore year and started talking to other students on campus and was like, so like, how was your freshman year? And I heard a shocking amount of people say very similar things to me, and that we were seeking more meaningful ways to connect and to talk about the hurt that each and every one of us experiences. And so I ended up starting to host like just these really small grassroots gatherings where I would walk up to different people on campus that I didn't really know and just invite them into a space to just talk about what was happening in our lives and learn about really how multidimensional we all were. And that was incredibly humbling. I ended up calling them space gatherings. They were so simple. Like there was no website, there was no intention to scale or create a student club. It was just people getting together to like get more curious about each other and to share about, both the highs, but also importantly, the lows. And so so I ended up studying psychology and really kept building those until the end of my college years. So I graduated in 2018. And in 2016, of course, the election happened, and it was just incredible to see, you know, how much sadness there was, how much hate, how much misalignment, how much anger. I didn't feel like I had the right tools yet, because I felt like, yes, in some ways I was already a community organizer, but I didn't know how to use my voice in a political way. Like I wasn't a policy expert. I didn't study political science. Like who am I, And I think over the past couple of years, I've recognized, even in talking about my own loneliness, that the personal is deeply political, like obviously, but that all of our personal experiences are so important. And, my father is a Trump supporter. He voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. And my heart has become so hardened to him and to Trump supporters and to, frankly, people who I think differently from me. And I hate to say that, that just sounds so closed-minded of me. But that is sort of one of the reasons that compelled me to join this campaign, was to combat like hate in a culture of being able to totally disregard what someone else says just based upon how they vote. And I'm doing a lot of it is inner work, frankly, like it shows up in me organizing on a campaign. But I think for me, first and foremost, I really need to reckon with like my own heart and how I talk about it with friends and with my own family. So I came into this role because I actually worked at a venture capital firm the first 2 years I graduated from college, and worked doing essentially community organizing, but for a VC firm, which was really interesting, and worked with startup entrepreneurs and people, and ultimately realized like I wasn't very interested in that, but really enjoy building up programs, inspiring, mobilizing people. And I, at the same time, had gone to start working with, he was the former Surgeon General of America under Obama, Dr. Vivek Murthy, and he really cares about loneliness. And so in my senior thesis, I also studied ageism and loneliness. And so my college professor connected me with him when he was looking for a researcher to help him write his book about loneliness and social connections and public health. And so stayed in touch with him and just realized like it's so possible to participate in politics. Like he's a doctor, and the type of politics that he pushes forward is like rooted in love, and it stands for all the most progressive of policies. But just his approach was really remarkable, and kind of like a Fred Rogers type of way. And so I actually was writing about neighborhoods and social change. So that's one of the big topics that I'm really interested in, is like how polarization shows up in a hyper local environment, and how we need to meet our neighbors and talk to our neighbors and be in community with our neighbors. Many of them likely are like the other, and I have to realize like how not scary that is and how human we all are. And so I wrote a piece, I put it on like Medium or something, and someone found it, and that's how I got connected to the role. So I know that, all of you all, I think from what Matthew is saying, are very creative people, and it's so interesting where I'm trying to lean more into that. I think for me that shows up as writing, and just to begin to put out my own thoughts. Like at first I was like, what worth is this? And just realizing like there are people who are listening and wanting to talk about how the personal is political. So I'll stop there, but yeah.
Unmuting myself. That is the most amazing story. It's so incredible to me because I think listening to you talk, one of the things that I realize is that your creative outlet is creating community, actually. I mean, what an amazing thing to do with your life. It's so interesting did you create Communities United, or was it your idea?
Yes. I wanted it to be Neighbors United at first, but then people were like, well, you can't really get in person, meet in person. So it's like, okay, communities, but yeah.
That's remarkable to me, because I just think that I think that it was such a great idea. And it really created space for people like me, who I've always been politically active, and I've done a lot of activism through groups, but I never tried to do anything on my own, and so I just think that for people like me, what a brilliant idea. And I really feel like it probably had a much larger impact than you realize, or that any of us realize. It's because it's how grassroots anything works. We touch others, and then they touch others, and then it just grows and grows. And so it really felt like that. And one of my favorite things about working on the campaign was the language that was chosen to talk about how we speak with one another, and that literally a sort of plank in the platform was, we have to reclaim the soul of America. It felt like the right message to me. And yeah, I was, as I said earlier, I wasn't necessarily on board for Joe at first, but as it progressed and people really helped him find a clear message, it just seemed really inevitable that he's he's like this wonderful grandfatherly figure that people can't help but love. And I think I can't imagine anything better for our country right now. So, I came around. I want to talk to Taylor. Are you still there? Yeah, you're there. Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Taylor. So why don't you talk a little bit about, well, you are actually a Paws Up member. So you can talk about it from the perspective of somebody who just came into it, but then also please tell us a story about how you reached out to me and what we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, that video, I don't know if that's the one you're referring to. Like, it's amazing. We showed it to our community leaders. So I have seen your work before. It's
Wait,
great.
really? That's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh my God, that's so great. Well, so I got the Facebook invite from Matthew, and I mean, I echo the things that you've said, Serena. And Matthew, how this campaign is so much about. Whoa, that's my alarm. It means work is starting again. That this campaign to me was so much about kindness and empathy, and I have always struggled with news and with politics and all this, because I know that there's so much that I don't know. And so choosing sides is always been really hard for me, even though I always have an opinion. I always I'm thinking about the other side, and so it gets complicated in my brain. And this just, if it is so as black and white as it gets for me, as far as what's right and what's wrong. I mean, I still have moments where I'm frustrated with myself, but I'm like, why are they right? I mean, they wrong and I'm right. Even though I know that that's true, I still am trying to figure out what their point of view is. But ultimately, and I had this conversation with my dad, who has left the Republican Party since all this happened, which is great. But I was saying, yes, the Republicans can have like different policy views and different, like, that is fine with me. I can respect that. But the lack of kindness and lack of empathy is literally killing people. And so you have to have a really, really terrible personality for it to actually kill people. And that's what we've been dealing with the last 4 years. So when I got Matthew's Facebook invite, it was I've been wanting to like get back in touch with Oberlin and with Matt and Paul, and it's a really, really important part of my life and the people that I met there and the community that it is. And so that was one of the reasons that I was like, yes, I want to pay attention to this. And it was just really good to have a space that was separate from anything else in my life, like that could be just about this one thing, just about the campaign. And it isn't tied into any of the other activities I'm doing. It is like a group of people that I probably wouldn't have talked to in a while or never met, that I could be in community with. And even though the pandemic is absolutely terrible, I've been getting in touch with people that I wouldn't have otherwise, because it's like my neighbors down the street are the same distance as Matthew is in Oberlin from me right now, which is it's a gift in certain ways. So I went to a couple of the events, I think, and then there was one that I missed. And I think it was the one where you guys were sharing stories and like story banking. And I had really wanted to go to it, but I think there was a friend who needed me at that time. So I was talking to her. And I saw a post from one of the other Pause Up members that talked about how there were only 5 people there. And it was really, really wonderful. And I was like, oh man, that's a real shame. That because it's a really, really valuable thing. I wish I had been there, but I wasn't even there. And so how can we've got such great resources being OBs. So how can I use the things that I can do and serve this group that I've become a part of, and help, like, part of it also was, I was like, Matt's doing this really awesome thing. I want more people to be at his event so that he's got big smiles on his face, like, not that you were ever complaining about people not coming, like you were doing the opposite, but like that was a big part of it for me too. And so I wrote him a Facebook message and said, hey, what if we do like a video with Oberlin alumni? And he said, that's great. We had a Zoom meeting the next morning. That was Wednesday morning, I think, maybe, before the election. And then by Thursday, midday or so, or end of day, we had videos in from these amazing people that Matt had messaged. And me and my boyfriend, Bri, who worked together on various things, put together this video and edited this thing. And I did a first cut of it, and then he took it and he got more, he fine cut it and we added some stuff and we put it out there. And it was a really cool thing for me to be able to take stuff that I've learned and that I've like gotten into since Oberlin. Like I didn't do film stuff at Oberlin, and now the past 5 years, I kind of decided, okay, I have to leave Chicago where I was doing doing theater for free all the time and move somewhere else and like immerse myself in this new form of storytelling, this new form of reaching out. And I really, really enjoy, telling stories with puppets and narrative stuff, but also taking people's words and then finding the rhythm and the commonalities in what they're saying and putting it together. I've done that kind of thing with like my 6th grade teacher, retired after like 20 something years. And I had alumni from, a span of that whole time submit stuff. And it's so interesting to see the common things, the ways people complement each other and almost talk back to each other as well. Like in the video that we made, as they kept coming in, I was like, did they get together and discuss like what personality they were going to be? You've got Deanna, who's like, it's like, I'm not taking any excuses. You gotta like, hands down, you have no excuse. And then you have Avery, who's like, please, can you please vote? It would be really good if you voted. I would really appreciate it. And then Sarah Violet, who does, I don't know if you guys have seen this, we could just show it instead of me reenacting the whole thing, but the way that their voices melded together was really, really fun. And so through that, I've been able to figure out how to be political, whereas before it was hard for me. I leaned on community, like community was the big thing for me too. While I was at Oberlin, I created like a community fair thing, which like, what does that mean? I don't know. I changed it to Unity Fair because like, I don't know, I just want people to be together. But so that's always been something on my mind, but now being able to really take the empathy and kindness and community part, which for me is all wrapped up together and understanding, and then the political, let's get this team in the White House, like kind of amorphous blob and very, very like tangible thing. And they came together like really through this project and I did this like little mailboxes project where I made a pattern of a mailbox and put it out for people, and they could cut it out and like put it together and draw pictures on it and stuff about why they were voting, what they were voting for. And so I've always kind of felt like my creative side and that really tangible, like let's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are separate. And so being able to channel, like taking the things I'm good at and putting them toward a goal is really good, especially when so much of art, I mean, I know that it's the most important thing, but so often it feels selfish. And I know that it's not, but when I'm doing it, it feels selfish. When other people are doing it, it feels giving. So, but being able to bridge that gap too through this has been really great.
Well, I think I'm sure everyone here has probably seen it, but we're going to watch it anyway. I want to play the video, and then I also want to play some of the ones that that Serena, you didn't get to see, because Taylor took each of the individual submissions and turned them into videos too, and so it's really fun to watch like one person's whole sort of put together thing and then see what happened to it. So I'm going to share my screen, and here, let's go.
Hello, good students of Oberlin. This is Ben Sinclair, professional narcissist.
Oberlin alum Deanna Reasonover coming to you here with one message.
Bill Irwin here, talking to my phone.
My name is Avery Monson. When you're making a video like
Can you all hear this? I can't hear it anymore.
I can't hear it either.
Hear any excuses about it.
It's just
There we go.
important during this time that
So did we, was that, nobody was able to hear, is that right? Is it because I muted my,
For part of it we could, and then it stopped.
oh, okay. Well,
The
so-
playbacks are always challenging on Zoom.
Hello, good students
Here
of
we
Oberlin. This is Ben Sinclair, professional narcissist.
Oberlin alum Deanna Reasonover coming to you here with one message.
Bill Irwin here, talking to my phone.
My name is Avery Monson. When you're making a video like this, you got to cut to a lot of people. So,
Hi, this is Sarah Violet Bliss, class of 2006.
And I'm sending greetings and thanks for keeping things coherent and safe on the historic campus.
I hear you're doing a great job of keeping campus healthy and open.
It's a really amazing thing that you've been able to go to school and keep everybody safe.
Belaboring the obvious, we've got to vote this year. We've got to get our own votes in, and anyone else's we can help.
You need to vote. I don't want to hear any excuses about it.
It's just super important during this time that we practice self-care, which is why I have drawn myself this bath.
well, I know that you're probably very busy.
I don't think I have to tell you this. I don't, do I? You're Obies, but please vote.
Vote.
Really want to release those toxins, get some Epsom salts.
And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, hey, you know, the status quo is already set, my vote doesn't count. Let me give you an example. 2018, the Kentucky House of Representatives, the 13th district. Do you know how many votes that election came down to? Came down to one. Came down to literally one vote.
I was just looking at some various online election forecasts, which is a thing that I do now sort of compulsively over and over again in a way that's not that great for my mental health.
I'll give you another example. Also 2018, the Alaska House of Representatives. Why is it always the House of Representatives? I don't know.
I saw that in Ohio, Trump and Biden are literally tied.
But that first district, that also came down to one single vote.
Listen, there are very few chances in life where your single vote, your voice, can have such a profound impact.
You could literally be the one vote that makes a difference. But if you don't vote, you're never going to make a difference.
You need to make a plan to vote.
If you requested a vote by mail ballot and you decide to vote early, you have to vote before election day, because if you show up on election day, they'll ask you to vote provisionally, and provisional ballots do get counted, but they have to go through verification first.
Vote early if you can, vote in person if you can.
Early and in person.
If you can't, get an absentee ballot and send it in right away.
It may not be easy this year. May have to stand in line to whatever needs to be done. I'm sending greetings and hope.
Now, more than ever, our democracy depends on everyone's participation.
Thank you for watching. Please vote.
Put yourself first, and also, please vote.
Gives me such joy. I just do want to play one or two of these others. I just have to.
Did you guys see my boyfriend added his college, Pomona College, 1991 in there? I came back and he had changed the credits to add Pomona in there, which I thought was adorable.
It is.
Oh, and here's another note. So I've got people that I went to school with there who were a year apart from me. And then there's Bill Irwin and Judy Kuhn.
I know.
and like Bill Irwin
How
has
did you
always
get them?
Matt did. Matthew Wright.
They're all, because they're all Oberlin alumni, and I've been here for 20 years. And so I not that they were here when I was here, but I, through a variety of different interactions with them, we've just all become friends. And I hosted, I was the faculty advisor for this big 2-week thing that we did in New York over a winter term once. And I really got to know Judy and Bill then. But yeah, so I want to show you two of my favorite individuals. So we'll watch Ben's here. What do you on YouTube? There we go.
Hello, good students of Oberlin. This is Ben Sinclair, professional narcissist. Just reminding you, I don't think I have to tell you this. I don't, do I? You're Obies, but please vote. Please make this hell stop. And also, it's a really amazing thing that you've been able to go to school and keep everybody safe. So my kudos to you. And pause up, motherfucker.
I love that one.
Oh, when he said, please make this hell stop, I was like, that's it. That is the feeling. But that was partisan, so we couldn't include it.
Yeah, unfortunately we had to edit that out. But I want to just. Where is go to videos? But Sarah Violet, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this has to do with our our meeting here, because it really does, I promise. This one kills me. Hello. What is happening?
Hi, this is Sarah Violet Bliss, class of 2006, reminding you that it's just super important during this time that we practice self-care, which is why I have drawn myself this bath. Yeah, just really want to release those toxins, get some Epsom salts, and take care of yourselves, because it's a stressful time and you got to put yourself first. And also, please vote.
So I know, isn't it just hilarious? So the reason that I wanted to, and we'll stop sharing this, share. The reason that I wanted to show those two in particular is because, well, first of all, Ben has become, semi-famous. He's very, very well known because of the show. But he created. I have no idea.
It's a weekend update with Colin Jost and Michael Shea.
Sorry. That was exciting. Go away. Okay, sorry guys. But anyway, Ben basically created this character, and started out. I mean, Ben's whole thing started out as a YouTube series. Is how he did it. And he did the same thing that all of us have done. He just reached out to his friends and they started making stuff. And he also happened to, for a while at least, was married to a casting director. She was the casting director for 30 Rock. So she was in touch with a whole bunch of people. And so they started this little web series, and then it blossomed into this thing. And now he's going into, I think, season 4 on HBO Max. And then Sarah Violet, while her image is not as recognizable as his, she created, she graduated from here. They were both theater students here, and they both graduated the same year, 2006. And Sarah Violet went on to NYU Film School, and her thesis project was a film called, I'm going to forget the name of it, Fort Tilden, which is a really, really hilarious and wonderful kind of takedown of millennial culture. And then she created Search Party, which is now in its 3rd season, I think, also on HBO Max. And both of them are so on brand in these little 30-second things. I mean, it's really clear that they know what they're doing and that they knew how to create the moment perfectly. So they're these like beautifully structured little 30 I asked for 30 seconds and each of them gave me like 33 or 34 seconds. Complete, so on brand, just being who they are. And Sarah Violet's particularly just kills me every time I see it, because it's so, again, it's just such a sly little takedown of this sort of, me culture that no one can do quite in the way that she does. So anyway, so if nothing else, for those of us who are gathered, and there's now I think one student on the call, but you know, it's like I stopped being so concerned about, you know, what success looks like. But if we can take nothing else away from it, it really is just about the personal will to reach out, to make connection. And that's what motivated every single one of us who have spoken here today. You know, we wanted to connect, and we wanted to have a place where we could share pain. I'm so grateful, Serena, that you talked to begin with so personally and so honestly about your experiences and what brought you to this work, because it occurred to me while all this was going on. And then those of you who are Facebook friends saw my post, the video that I posted, like literally as it was being announced. I was a wreck. It was so, I'm a fairly stoic person. I'm not usually a terribly demonstratively emotional person. I'm an enthusiastic person, but I don't usually cry in public. But I was just a wreck when it was declared for Joe Biden. And what I realized in that moment was, for 4 years, I had been hanging on to real terror, honestly, just fear, you know, and it felt so good for that to be released, or at least the hope of it, knowing where we're going. And that does bring me to I think probably what can be our final little moment here is, I don't know, Serena, if you have any words for us about what's next. I mean, obviously the Georgia races are where I'm going to be putting my attention between now and January 5th. But just what, you know, how's the campaign feeling, and what's going on? An update, if you will.
Yeah, I think I feel like a lot of the campaign is now just transitioning. Like people are, I mean, the transition team is being built out right now, and people are thinking about, okay, how do we mobilize for Georgia and pour resources into it, as well as close out Arizona. We're finishing up curing ballots in Nevada. So just finishing up all the work to make sure that all the votes are counted. And then I think just beginning the offboarding process really is that, in making sure that a lot of the infrastructure that we've built out with and alongside our volunteers continues on like way past us. And so moving that back into the Democratic Party with the DNC as opposed to the Biden for President campaign, since that will dissolve in a couple of weeks, I'd imagine. So I think that is the top priority of making sure that the transition, both the presidential team as well as like all of us, are transitioning into the right ways to continue the fight towards everything that is ahead of us. So yeah, that's probably the best way I could summarize this time.
And what's going to happen for you personally? Are you going to continue working with the DNC, or what?
So no, my contract, so most of us are contracts positions with the campaign. So mine ends like later this week. I'm thinking about still what is next. One of the things would be trying to dive deeper into neighborhood community building, social cohesion, how to create bridging and uniting neighborhoods in the face of what all the work that we have to do at a national level, and or, you know, in a couple of weeks or months. This is so, you know, in the future, but it would be really cool to work in government in the state, most local. I'm in San Francisco, so it'd be amazing to work there, or in DC. So just laying the seeds for that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And Taylor, you're gainfully employed, thank God.
I am. I got super lucky in that I'm working in animation right now, which you don't have to be in the same room as anyone with. And some of our team is in Canada and some is in France anyway. So there have been a lot of Zoom. I knew what Zoom was before all this happened because we had meetings on Zoom anyway. So and picking up like little side projects too, or I have time to do it. So
it's fantastic. There was something that just came up that was prompting me to say something, and now I don't remember what it is. That's what happens when you're over 60, you just forget. But I do know what it is. Yeah, one of the things, so one of the things about Pause Up that I learned through my work with Pause Up, I did a ton of events, and a lot of them I just stopped even I stopped even putting through the regular mill because I was dealing with sort of little more localized communities, and people didn't want to sign up through the platform and all that kind of thing. And so I just started having Zoom meetings, and those were ultimately probably the most constructive things that we did. I will say that in spite of the fact that there was never like a huge Pause Up phone bank or anything like that, that at least 30 people that were in Pause Up went on to volunteer and do all kinds of work at the national level. So it definitely served its purpose. And I learned to roll with the punches. It's like, oh, it's like anytime, like if you throw a party, usually if it's a live party, people always show up, but Serena's right, like in this Zoom world that we're living in, it was always sort of hit or miss. And so I had some really well-attended events and some others that weren't, but the ones leading up to election night were really, really meaningful. And that was when I figured out, oh, well, I've just been sort of throwing something at the wall and hoping that it would stick. And what I found out in the final week of it was that I had served a purpose of just holding space, of just creating community, a landing place for people to come to share their fears and to share their struggles with their families. That was a huge topic of conversation. And even in my own household, a lot of my husband's family are not just Republicans, but they're Trumpsters, and so it was really, I wound up feeling great about the work that I did. And in the meantime, I was texting 4 hours a day myself personally. So if nothing else, I hope I helped to turn out the vote. But anyway, I saw Caroline, our department chair is here, and I would just love for her to introduce herself. Caroline, hello, are you there?
I am here. Hi, I'm sorry to join so late. I was at a rehearsal, actually in the Candor Theater, and it was so moving to be in the theater. One of our senior capstones, which is going great, Anna Hubert Aubrey. But I'm just excited that Matt was the one who had the idea of doing these roundtables. I'm so appreciative of all the work you did on the election. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It just means a lot what you've done. And I'm glad that we're sharing about it in the theater context too.
Yeah, me too. I'm really glad that we were able to make this happen. And just so you know, and we are going to probably end this call real soon, just because I want to make sure that people can get off to do the things they need to do this evening. But because you weren't here when introductions were being made, our two guests, one is Taylor Bibat, who
Hi.
from 07, and Serena Bian, who was part of the national campaign. She started this amazing program that I became involved in called Communities United.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, it was a really, really meaningful thing. And so even though we are small in number today, I just am so grateful to you, Serena, and to you, Taylor, for the work that you did. I think that you made a huge difference, whether you know it or not. You made a difference in my life, and in doing that, you touched 450 people who belong to a Facebook group, right? So it wouldn't have happened otherwise. So look at that. Isn't that amazing? And that's really all it takes. It's just the motivation. It's the personal will to make it happen. Like if you feel so motivated, and Taylor is a great example of how you take your creative abilities and turn it into some kind of political action. So I feel really privileged to get to have this conversation. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Serena and Taylor. Every vote really did count. And it's still counting, I guess.
It really honestly is. It's just, I'm still waiting with bated breath for all of the votes to be certified, and then for January 20th to please hurry up and get here.
Please hurry up.
I just want to, this is turning into the Matthew Wright show. I apologize for that. But anyway, one of the things that I didn't say was, so the campaign, the election in 2016 was held in November, and then a month later, I got a cancer diagnosis. It's still, I'm perfectly healthy now, but still dealing with the fallout from all of that. And but one of the things that I pledged to do when Mr. Trump was elected was go to the Women's March. I had a mastectomy because I had breast cancer. I had a mastectomy on January the 5th, and I was at the Women's March on the 22nd of January, 2016, still bleeding from my surgical wound, but I was there, I did the whole thing, and it's just about determination. It's like, and it does matter. I believe it with all my heart that just being around other people who have a similar impulse makes a huge difference. So anyway, if there's anything we can take away from it, it's that not only does every vote matter, every story matters.
Yeah.
And we just have to be the guardians and make sure that all those stories get told and that there's a platform for all of them. So anyway, thanks everybody. This was a lovely little gathering.
Hi, Gillian. Hi, Lauren. So nice to see you, Gillian.
I so
Thanks,
appreciate
Matt.
You're welcome, and bless you all.